Welcome to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries, where legends never sleep. Welcome back to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries. Find a quiet place to rest your head. Let the room dim down around you and feel the day loosen its grip on your shoulders. Tonight, we are going somewhere very cold, very far, and very old, to a place where the earth itself seems to bleed. Yet every droplet is a message from a world older than us. Close your eyes if you like, and imagine the map of the world unfolding in your mind. Let your thoughts drift south, and then further south still, past oceans and islands, past the last green forests, until there is nothing left but white. A continent bigger than Europe, wrapped in ice and silence. Antarctica. But we are not going to the familiar image of Antarctica, not the smooth, endless white you see in photographs. We are going to a place that looks more like another planet. A valley where there is almost no snow, no trees, no grass, no animals, just rock, ice, and wind. This is the McMurdo Dry Valleys, one of the driest places on Earth. The air there is so cold and so dry, it steals the moisture from your breath. The winds that blow down from the ice cap are called katabatic winds, and they can tumble down the slopes like invisible avalanches, scouring the land. It hardly ever snows. The sky is a hard, crystalline blue, and the ground is bare stone and dust. When scientists first came here, they said it felt like walking on Mars. At the heart of one of these valleys, Taylor Valley, a glacier advances slowly, century by century, like a frozen tongue of time. It's called Taylor Glacier, a wall of ancient blue-white ice spilling out of the mountains. At first glance, it looks like any other glacier, ridged and fractured, its surface shimmering under the pale Antarctic sun. But if you walk closer, crunching over the stone and gravel, you begin to see something that doesn't belong. At the base of the glacier, where ice meets the valley floor, the white turns to rust. A stain runs down the face of the ice like a frozen wound, deep red, almost the color of fresh blood. It flows, slowly, very slowly, out from the glacier, a thin, eerie waterfall that paints the ice and the ground beneath in iron red. This is Blood Falls. For a long time, no one understood it. When the first explorers saw it in the early 1900s, they were already on the edge of the known world. The British Antarctic expedition, led by Robert Falcon Scott, sent a geologist named Griffith Taylor into this valley in 1911. Imagine him standing there in his heavy wool and leather, staring up at a glacier that appeared to be bleeding into the emptiness. In that era, maps still had blank spaces. The poles were places of rumor and risk, where compasses misbehaved and men vanished into white horizons. So when the expedition came upon a waterfall, the color of blood, in a valley that almost never saw snow, it must have felt like the landscape itself was telling them a story they didn't yet have the language to read. Of course, they did what scientists do. They described, they measured, they sketched. They gave the glacier his name, Taylor Glacier, and the strange red flow became known simply as Blood Falls. The name stuck, as names often do when they fit a feeling. For the rest of the world, the image was enough. A glacier that bleeds in the coldest, driest place on Earth. Now, let your mind drift closer. Picture the ice in front of you, towering, creaking softly as temperatures shift. At its base, a gap where something dark and liquid seeps out, streaking the white with reds and oranges that deepen and fade like dried paint. The waterfall isn't a rushing torrent. It doesn't roar, it oozes, it seeps, it stains. Sometimes it all but vanishes. Sometimes it darkens again. If you saw it without knowing the science, what story would you tell yourself? Some might whisper that the glacier is wounded, bleeding from some ancient hurt. Others might imagine something trapped behind the ice, something old and patient, sending out thin red signals into the valley. In another age, it might have been a bad omen, a sign the gods were displeased, or the earth was restless. But the real story of Blood Falls is stranger than any curse. It is not the earth bleeding. It is the earth remembering. The color, the uncanny red, comes from iron. The water that emerges from the glacier is not fresh meltwater, like the streams that run from mountain snow. It is brine, very salty water, that has been trapped beneath the ice for a very long time. Some scientists think it has been sealed away for more than 1,000,000 years. Beneath Taylor Glacier lies a hidden reservoir, an ancient subglacial lake. Long ago, before this valley was locked in deeper ice, there were bodies of water here, exposed to air, and perhaps even connected to the ocean. As the climate changed, ice advanced and sealed them away. The lake became buried under hundreds of meters of glacier, cut off from sunlight, cut off from the surface, isolated in darkness. In that isolation, the water became saltier and richer with dissolved minerals from the rocks around it. Iron seeped in. There is almost no oxygen down there. No fresh air has touched that world for longer than human history has existed. It is a pocket of ancient earth, locked in the dark. So why doesn't it freeze solid? The secret is in the salt. The brine that feeds Blood Falls is so salty, it can stay liquid far below the freezing point of normal water. It is a kind of ghost ocean, hiding inside the glacier. And like all hidden things, it eventually found a way out. Inside Taylor Glacier, the brine moves through cracks and channels, creeping slowly upward under pressure, guided by the structure of the ice and the slope of the valley beneath. It is a journey so slow that compared to our lives, it might as well be frozen in time. But eventually, at the front of the glacier, the brine meets the open air for the first time in perhaps 1,000,000 years. And when it does, something happens. Iron dissolved in the brine, invisible and quiet in the dark, suddenly meets oxygen. The reaction is simple chemistry, iron oxidizing, just like a piece of metal rusting in the rain. But here, that rust becomes color. The iron turns to iron oxides, painting the water red. So when the brine seeps from the glacier and trickles down its face, it looks like blood staining the ice, a place where the earth itself seems to bleed. Yet every droplet is a message from a world older than us. Scientists spent decades trying to understand this system. At first, some thought red algae might be the cause of the color. Blood Falls is so surreal that chlorophyll and life seemed like reasonable suspects. But later analyses found the answer in the chemistry. Iron-rich, hypersaline water oxidizing as it touches our familiar atmosphere. Yet, life does exist there, just not in the way you might expect. If you could follow the brine back into the glacier, disappearing beneath the surface like a vein slipping under skin, you would leave the icy light and enter a world without day or night. No stars, no moon, no sun, just rock and water and pressure. In that blackness, our usual ideas of life, plants reaching for sunlight, animals breathing air, fall away. Down there, scientists have found tiny communities of microbes, bacteria adapted to an existence without light. Instead of using sunlight to power their world, they use chemistry, iron, sulfur, and other compounds dissolved in the brine. They are called extremophiles, lovers of the extreme, thriving in cold, salty, oxygen-poor conditions that would kill most familiar organisms. They eat what the rocks give and exhale their waste into the water, slowly altering the chemistry over thousands of years. These microscopic beings have no idea we exist. They do not know there is a sky. They are part of a slow, patient cycle that has been turning since before the human mind learned to dream of gods. Some researchers see in bloodfalls a kind of natural laboratory for other worlds. If life can survive in brine sealed beneath ice, feeding on minerals instead of sunlight, maybe something similar could exist on icy moons like Europa or Enceladus, where oceans hide beneath shells of frozen water. The red stain on Taylor Glacier becomes a signpost, pointing not just into Earth's past, but into the possibility of life beyond our planet. Think about that for a moment, as you lie there in your bed or your chair, listening, somewhere at the bottom of the world, in a valley that feels like Mars, there is a glacier slowly exhaling red water from an ancient lake. Inside, that water are tiny lives that have never seen the sun, and we, warm and breathing under our blankets, learn their story from afar. The McMurdo dry valleys themselves add to the strangeness. Unlike most of Antarctica, they are not buried under kilometers of ice. The mountains around them block the flow of glaciers, and those fierce katabatic winds whisk away any snow that falls, leaving the ground exposed. Temperatures are below freezing most of the year, but humidity is so low that ice can sublimate directly into vapor. Lakes in the valleys are capped with thick ice, but beneath those lids, liquid water persists, layered with salt and history. For decades, these valleys have been used as an analogue for Mars. Robotic rovers are tested here. Astronauts train here. Scientists come to study how life hangs on at the very edge of habitability. And in the midst of all of it, Bloodfalls stands out. A shock of red against white and stone, as if someone has brushed a vertical wound into the landscape. If you were standing there in the stillness of Antarctic afternoon, the air almost silent except for the occasional hiss of wind, Bloodfalls would not behave like the waterfalls you know. There is no constant roar, no spray, no rainbows in the sun. The flow is intermittent and slow. It emerges from a small opening at the glacier's front, staining the ice below with branching tendrils of rust red and orange-brown. In some seasons, it seems to sleep, barely visible. In others, it darkens, as if the glacier has taken a deeper breath. And if you were alone there, just you and the ice, your mind would start to reach for metaphors. That is what our minds do. We stand before something we don't fully understand, and we wrap it in story. You might think of the earth as a body, its rocks as bones, its rivers as veins. Bloodfalls becomes then a rare place where an inner system touches the outside world, a leaking memory, a confession. But if you peel back the story, you find the patient mechanisms of physics and chemistry. Pressure, salt, temperature, cracks in ice, slow movement of water, red iron meeting clear air. And yet, knowing this does not make it less mysterious. It makes the mystery finer, more intricate. Instead of a single imagined curse, you get a network of deep time and hidden ecosystems, a whisper of other planets, and the strange realization that even in the most silent places, the Earth is still at work. We like to think of ice as still, frozen, unmoving, but glaciers flow, grinding stone to powder. Under their weight, mountains soften and reshape. Beneath them, lakes form and disappear, water moving in slow motion, carving and carrying. Bloodfalls is a reminder that what looks frozen in time is often quietly changing. So, as you listen, imagine the timescale shifting. Think of 1,000,000 years compressed into a single breath. The glacier advances and retreats. The valley floor rises and falls with frost and thaw. The hidden lake under the ice grows a little saltier. Microbes divide and drift. Somewhere in that long, long timeline, humans appear, learn to sail, to measure latitude, to build ships strong enough to push into the southern seas. Eventually, they step ashore on the continent of ice and stone and wind. From the perspective of the ancient brine, our entire history is a flicker. The red water that emerges today began its journey long before we knew it existed, long before our languages, our music, our cities. It is like receiving a letter sent from a time when there were no eyes to read it. And yet, here you are, listening, breathing, existing at the end of that long chain. The message of Blood Falls reaches your mind tonight, thousands of kilometers away, in a completely different season, in a room warmed by electricity and wrapped in the hum of the modern world. In that sense, the glacier does bleed stories. We extract them with instruments and equations, with drilling rigs and ice cores. But under all the data, there is still the feeling you get when you see it, that something wild and secret has been allowed to show itself. You can almost imagine the earth speaking in layers, mountains as sentences, rivers as long winding phrases, valleys as pauses. Bloodfalls is a small, vivid word in that language, a bright syllable of red in a book written mostly in white and grey. Take a slow breath in and let it out. Feel how your own blood moves quietly through you, carrying oxygen, iron, warmth. Inside your veins, iron meets the oxygen you breathe, just as iron in the Antarctic brine meets oxygen in the cold air. Different processes, different scales, but connected by the same basic chemistry. At every level, from the microscopic to the planetary, the universe repeats itself in patterns. The next time you see a picture of Antarctica, try not to see it as a blank, empty void. Under the ice, there are rivers, there are lakes, there are ecosystems so different from ours that they might as well be alien worlds. And at Taylor Glacier, some of that inner world breaks through in a color our storytelling instincts cannot ignore. A place where the earth itself seems to bleed, yet every droplet is a message from a world older than us. As night leans in, a little closer around you, let that image fade slowly. The red stain on the glacier grows smaller. The valley pulls back. The continent shrinks to a pale shape at the bottom of your inner globe. And then, even that globe dissolves until you're simply here again. The familiar room, the quiet, the rhythm of your own breathing. Here, the mysteries are smaller, but no less real. The way a single decision can change a life. The way a memory can surface after years, like a message from beneath your own ice. The way we carry questions we may never fully answer, but still find comfort in asking. Thank you for wandering with me tonight, all the way to the edge of the world and back. If this journey into the bleeding glacier soothed your thoughts or stirred your curiosity, you're always welcome to return. There are many more hidden corners of reality waiting in the dark, strange facts wrapped in myth, and myths tangled gently around truth. For now, let your eyes grow heavy. Let the noise of the day drift away, like snow carried off by a distant Antarctic wind. And if you'd like more nights like this, more quiet stories from the edges of science and legend, you can stay close by subscribing to Bedtime Myths and Mysteries, so the next tale finds you when the world grows quiet again. Sleep well, dream of slow rivers under ancient ice, and know that even in the coldest places, the universe is still writing.